The Let's Go Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of this glorious Election Day Tuesday. Before we jump in and get started, we always have to make sure that the YouTube stream is connected. The Rumble stream, of course, is connected. Shout out to my friend Cat Crap Fever over there, along with Dragon in Houston. And we're, of course, also streaming on Facebook and on Twitch and also on Locals, our Locals community. We are always there a little bit before and usually after the show as well. And so check us out over there, but it's looking like it is working. And so let's go ahead and get started, my friends, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Govea. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group. We're located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about the red wave. It's looking like it's going to be a big one, but we have some business to attend to before we can be conclusive about this. Obviously, the elections are underway. Hopefully, you got out there and did your part, rocking and rolling with your vote, making your voice heard. I know some people are out there, kind of, low voting and all this stuff. This is what we've got, and this is what we've got to hammer home. And so if you're still sitting there just waiting around out there, should I get up and go do it or something? Yes, the answer is yes. Definitely get out there and go make your voice heard. There is still time probably in many places. It depends on if you are, it depends when you're watching this, I suppose. But if you can vote, go vote. Okay, so as you can see, we've got just a lot to get to today. Now, we're going to start off the show. A lot of the election results are going to come in, and so we'll save all of that for after the fact. We are planning on going over to Good Logic's channel. I know Legal Mindset is having a panel as well. He's on Rumble. And so there's going to be a bunch of people covering results. Today, we're going to talk about some of the issues in our first segment. Arizona apologizes for the tabulators. Okay, so you probably saw a lot of this. We posted a video earlier today about me voting. I went down to downtown Phoenix and voted, and it wasn't an issue. But all over Arizona, there were issues, and these are official issues. You can see we're going to listen to the Board of Supervisors and Board of Elections in Maricopa County. They're out now fully apologizing for this. They're saying, this wasn't what we wanted. We're going to check in and see literally what went wrong. This is the machine that I inserted my ballot into today, and it was successful, but apparently for many Arizonans, it was not. Now, that being said, we've got to talk about the numbers, right? It's looking like there is a red wave, at least today. The Board of Electors came out and they apologized, and they actually told us what the problem was. It was a printer problem. They didn't have enough ink, something. Now, we'll get into all of that. Kari Lake was out. She came and voted today. Actually, this is right around the area where we do our morning walk and talks. We sort of walk. This is on Central. We walk on the other side of it. But she was right down the street and voting, saying we're going to win this thing. And when asked about whether or not she was going to be, a Republican candidate for vice president, let's say, if Trump decides to run, which of course we speculate he is, she said that she's not going anywhere. She's going to be sticking in Arizona, and she's going to be our governor for 8 years. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to check in with Kari Lake and see if there's any updates before we jump into the next segment, which is the DOJ is monitoring midterms. They're actually sending out lawyers or, hall monitors or something with their little badges to go and monitor the polling places all around the United States. A bunch of different counties. The DOJ was evidently warning the political parties very recently. The Daily Caller had a story about this, saying that somebody somewhere was trying to interfere with the election. So the DOJ was warning the parties about this. And of course they say, we've got to make sure everything is conducted appropriately, which is very nice. Thank you, DOJ, for doing that. But Florida said, we don't want your help at all. Get out, okay? And we've talked a lot about this here, about this sort of soft decoupling between states just telling the federal government to get bent. You have no capacity to enforce your own stupid, illegitimate laws, and get out of here. And Florida's doing it. We've talked about Missouri doing it. Kari Lake's probably going to win, and she's going to do it too, declare an invasion on the southern border and militarize it. So we're seeing this soft decoupling, which I think is very exciting. The federal government does need to understand the states do have rights, which is, I think, a forgotten concept for many people in Washington. Now, in our third segment, we're going to talk about Donald Trump. He was voting. Of course, we spent some time talking about him last night when he gave a big rally. He voted today, like many Americans, went to the polls, did his part, doing what we all need to do to vote. And he voted for Ron DeSantis. You see that there? The media said, "Hey, Trump, who'd you vote for governor? Did you vote for Charlie Crist, Trump?" He says, "No, I voted for DeSantis, losers. Stop trying to instigate here." So we'll check in with him. He gave a couple statements, and of course, last night he made an announcement about an announcement. Tease the hell out of us, Trump, you know. Anyway, so we're going to listen to him. He had a message about voting. Meanwhile, Joe Biden was nowhere to be found. He was just sort of buried in the bunker. Election day, they're like, "Please do not come out. We do not want to hear from you." And we didn't. He recorded a video with Barack Obama, and they published that instead for their get out the vote effort. But not much from our president, of course. Adam Kinzinger is sort of in meltdown mode a little bit. He's very upset. You can tell he was on, I think, CNN or wherever, it doesn't matter. But he was explaining that Kevin McCarthy, who is presumably going to be the next GOP Speaker of the House, resurrected Trump. Oh, which is interesting. Blames him entirely for resurrecting Trump. Kinzinger unhappy about it. Now, he's going to be out of a job soon, so you can see why he might be a little bit upset. But we've got some Trump news before we finish up on the segment with a new Fetterman lawsuit. And I don't know about you, but I'm having flashbacks to 2020. I mean, we went through so many of these lawsuits, if you remember. Look at all this. See these board of electors, board of elections, board of elections, board of elections, elections. Remember all those? Oh, gosh. Yeah. It's like, geez, here we go again. And in this case, Fetterman is joined by Marc Elias. You remember this guy? Yeah, him. Democracy Docket. He's smart. Don't underestimate him, right? He's a sharp dude. Look at those glasses. He knows how to win elections in the courtroom. I mean, he's really good at it. The Republicans don't have a good answer. So he is joining up with the Fetterman crew, and they have submitted a new lawsuit to the Board of Elections in Pennsylvania, basically everywhere, every single county, and they're demanding that they count those ballots that we talked about are in that bucket of undated ballots, right? There's a big group of ballots. Evidently, people will put them in the secret ballot envelope and they won't date them, and it becomes a big problem. So we'll talk about that. It does look like this year the Republicans are not going to get caught as flat-footed as they were in 2020. Evidently, they are building up a little bit of an election litigation defense fund. So the Daily Caller, I think, had a good story on that. And then Reuters is reporting that the ACLU and other Democrats are all jumping into litigation, right? A bunch of other lawsuits, I think in Georgia and other places. So we're going to just have a ton of stuff to get to today, of course. And if you want to be a part of the show, the best place to do that is at our locals community over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Amazing community over there. Cassandra's Go says, "Are we doing election coverage or just a show?" Yeah, we are. We're going to do just a show here. We'll go for about an hour and a half or so. We'll get through all the content here today, maybe longer than that. I don't know how long it's going to take. But then we'll probably, depending on the time, head over to Good Logic, and I think he's hosting a panel, and so we'll sort of throw it over to him. And there's a lot of other people who are going to be on all night, streaming all night, so we'll join over there. But if you want to be a part, watchingthewatchers.locals.com is really an amazing place to be. We have polls. We posted a bunch of polls here today. We post morning walk and talk videos. It's a lot of fun. And so I'd encourage you to check it out if you're looking for a great place to hang. But as you can see, we've got some serious business to attend to. And I saw some super chats come in. Let's jump in. Let's grab these before I miss them. I saw a very generous one come in here from Kareem in the house. He says, "Wishing you a free and fair election from Canada. This is an important night." Shout out. Thank you, Kareem. Yeah, thank you for sending that in from Canada. Very generous of you and very much appreciated. A lot of people around the world are paying attention to this, because it's the United States and things have been pretty bad here, and it has a splash zone. Rob, what's up with them AZ machines? We don't have those problems in Texas. As an Arizona resident, I'm holding you personally responsible for this fiasco. Stop being a scrub, Rob, and fix it. I do. I have to accept responsibility on behalf of all Arizonans. It's all my fault. Like most things, they are all my fault. Thank you, Eddie. I do apologize. I mean, it's like how many, it's like, guys, we're not all like this. Okay. We're not all incompetent, bureaucrats, right? We actually have productive people here in this state. Thank you, Eddie from Texas. Love you, Eddie. All right. And so let's get right into it, shall we? Without any further ado, Arizona now apologizes for their tabulator problems. Oh, great. Big election day. Everybody wants things to run smoothly. Can we just count the votes and see who actually won without having questions about all of the technical malfunctions? Please? Well, we had some of that today in Arizona. I went and voted in downtown Phoenix. I didn't have any problems. I went in. It was about a 15-minute process. My ballot printed very nicely. All of my information was right there. I pulled it out and I inserted it right into the ballot box, and it worked perfectly. I got the green check mark. I got the voting sticker, and it all worked out nicely. But for many Arizonans, it wasn't so simple. And this is what the actual government is reporting. I want to show you where this came from so that we get proper sourcing on this. But this is the Maricopa County Elections Department, their verified Twitter account in Arizona. You see the message from Bill Gates, who is the chairman of the Elections Department, and the recorder, Stephen Ricker, who is giving us updates on what happened in Arizona on Election Day.
Hello, Maricopa County. I'm Bill Gates, the chairman of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors.
And I'm Stephen Richard, the Maricopa County Recorder.
Hey, Stephen.
And we're here to give you an update on how things are going so far with the election. We've already had almost 44,000 people show up this morning, check in, and be available to vote. Okay. And things are going great out there, but there's one thing that we wanted to address to make people aware of today, and that has to do with our tabulators.
Yeah.
We've got about 20% of the locations out there where there's an issue with the tabulator, where some of the ballots that after people have voted them, they try and run them through the tabulator and they're not going through.
Huh.
But the good thing is...
Well, that's weird. Yeah, this is the machine that I used today. It looked exactly like this. And I went and I touched the touch screen and I said, this is my name. I actually scanned my ID and they said, uh-oh, your signature looks like a bunch of squiggles. So somebody needed to come and check my ID and make sure it was me. And she did that. Hey, it's you. And then they said, okay, you still live here and all of that. Confirmed. They printed the ballot out, and so I stood by. I stood down and standed by, and I was waiting for them to call my name, and they called my name. They said, Robert, here's your ballot. And I said, oh, perfect. This is going to be the one. It's all going to change right now. We're going to make history today. And they gave me the ballot. I confirmed it was a nice, clean, blank ballot, no issues. I went out, filled it. It was a full room. I had to wait about a minute until one of the stations opened up. And then when I was done, I took the ballot and I inserted it, as he's going to explain, right into this top layer. You can see there's sort of two slots. Now, I'll be honest. When I walked up there, I was a little bit confused. I thought that I might have to insert it into this lower slot, the bottom slot. Pick your slot sometimes is a question that we have, and there are two slots on this machine, and so I was a little bit confused. However, there was a very helpful person who said, put it right here in top, shove it in there, and do it slowly. It'll grab it, and it'll work, and it did. And what happened is there was a little bit of a green check mark that popped up here on this color LCD, and it said, you're good to go. And I said, perfect. And I looked at him in the eye, and I said, thank you. And I confirmed that he was right, and I saw the green check mark and I moved on. But let's listen to what he said the problem is.
First of all, we're trying to fix this problem as quickly as possible, and we also have a redundancy in place. If you can't put the ballot in the tabulator, then you can simply place it here in where you see the number 3, and this is a secure box where those ballots will be kept for later this evening, where we'll bring them in here to Central Count to tabulate them.
So what he's saying is, if you can't put it in the first slot, what you're going to want to do is put it in the lower box, and the lower box will be something that is going to capture all of the ballots that they will then take for counting later, right? So the first one is like an electronic scanner, but the bottom one is sort of like a drop box. It's like literally kind of even looks like a drop box now that you mention it, right? It looks almost like a piece of Tupperware or something, like a secure box with things, and you just insert it in there, and then they take it down. They turn it over to Stephen Richer. Here's what he says.
This would function much like early voting functions, in that we would get your ballot back. Once we've signature verified it, we would send it to our central tabulators. Ballots that are in here will already be, in effect, signature verified, so we won't need to confirm identity, but we will central tabulate them. This is actually what the majority of Arizona counties do on election day all the time.
All right, so he said a lot there, but he's saying that the ballots have already been verified, right? Because the signature verification is happening before you even get there. The signature and the ID portion of all of this is done before you even get the ballot. Then the ballot just goes right in, so they don't have to verify anything after that fact, right? I'm pretty sure he said that. Otherwise, I missed it, but let's play that one more time.
Here to central count to tabulate them.
So this would function much like early voting functions, in that we would get your ballot back. Once we've signature verified it, we would send it to our central tabulators. Ballots that are...
So when you mail it in, right, they verify the signature, sort of like what we did when we went and touched the touch screen, right? You sign, this is me, doesn't match, or it does match. They print your ballot, you're good to go. That's the signature verification process in person. But in mail-in, they're going to do much the same thing, and then they'll give you the ballot. Actually, they'll then put it in the box and then transfer that down to central tabulation.
In here will already be, in effect, signature verified, so we won't need to confirm identity, but we will central tabulate them. This is actually what the majority of Arizona counties do on election day all the time.
And just one thing to keep in mind, we have 223 vote centers across the county. So if there are lines at the location you're at or issues with the tabulator, if you would prefer to go to another location, you can do that. Doesn't matter where you go, as long as you're a registered voter here in Maricopa County. Thanks so much. And everybody, if you haven't yet, get out and vote.
That's right. Get out and vote, even if the machines are, sort of kind of working or not working. They are working now, but this individual you see here, Stephen Richer, he is apologizing for what happened in Arizona. He actually came out and he said, sorry about that, everybody. And so we will check out what he said. You can see this came after that. So they posted this video early in the morning, Maricopa County Board of Elections. Then Stephen Richer, the Maricopa County Recorder, he came out and posted basically an apology letter. He said, sorry, we completely botched this. It is our mistake. We're going to try to fix all of this as soon as possible, but it is now fixed. So we also have an update from Jen Fifield, and she has confirmed for us as well that it is fixed. So we'll talk about all of that, as well as the red wave. But first, my friends, we have to talk about gold. If you have an IRA or a 401k or a savings account, you understand that things are scary out there. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record $30 trillion, and inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time until the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. I'd invite you to talk to my friends over at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. Go to robertlikesgold.com, and I learned this is only available for U.S. customers. So if you're trying to access this website from out of the United States, my understanding is it doesn't work, and I'm sorry to hear that, but it's only for U.S. They'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open up a qualifying account. Very easy to get to. Check out robertlikesgold.com, robertlikesgold.com. And thank you for supporting our sponsors. They support the program, and we're grateful for them. All right. And so as we talked about, the Maricopa County Recorder, Stephen Richer, was very apologetic after Arizona botched the tabulation. He posted this on Twitter, writing on November 8th, 2022, to Arizona voters. He says, "Hey, Arizona, I'm very sorry for any voter who has been frustrated or inconvenienced today in Maricopa County." He says, "Every legal vote will be tabulated, I promise. State statute has long governed the division of labor in our elections. Broadly speaking, the county recorder, which is me, is responsible for voter registration and early voting. The Board of Supervisors is responsible for emergency voting, election day operations, and tabulations. So oftentimes you'd call this sort of a finger pointing paragraph. This is their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. Since becoming recorder in 2021, I have worked hard to improve voter registration and early voting while also supporting the board's administration of election day operations and tabulation, as well as bolstering communications about elections holistically. I will continue to do that today, and through the conclusion of this election, I'll continue to assist voters in any way that I can. Says the Board of Supervisors has now identified the problem. So that's not his division, that's the Board of Supervisors. And they've begun fixing the affected voting locations. Said that they're also advising all affected voters to do one of the following. Place the ballot in door 3. The secure ballot box is retrieved by bipartisan workers at the end of the evening and brought to our central tabulators. This is the same methodology used for early voting, and it is the same methodology used on election day by most, including Pima County and County. And number 2, if you don't like that option, you can go to a different voting location. There are 223 voting locations. The significant majority of them are unaffected. As I mentioned, mine was not. I did not have that issue when I went to vote. Did not have to use door 3. If you have already checked in but want to cast your ballot at another site, you must first check in with the poll worker at Sitebook to return the issued ballot. You may then vote at any other location. All locations can be found at locationsmaricopa.vote. As has always been the case, every valid vote will be counted. As has always been the case, I remain committed to helping in any way I can. Sign yours truly. Guy's name is Stephen Richer, the Maricopa County Recorder. So now, is it his fault? Is it the Board of Supervisors' fault? Whose fault is it? Is it anybody's fault? Is this just, should we just kind of, it's a little problem and just kind of forget about it and move on? We'll see. We'll see how the election turns out. But that's the Arizona County Board of Supervisors and County Recorder both apologizing for what's going on in Arizona. Now, this is another statement that came out from the county spokesperson, and they gave us some more details on the actual issue. Jen Fitfield, she's a blue check mark on Twitter. She posted this. We actually have, I believe, well, let's just pull this open here. Here's what she said in full. This is the image. Okay, so update. Maricopa County 2022. This is the issue that caused the tabulator problems. They tell us that Maricopa County has identified the solution for the tabulation issues at about 60 vote centers. County technicians have changed printer settings, which seem to have resolved the issue. Well, that's good. It appears that some of the printers were not producing dark enough timing marks on the ballots. The solution is worked at 17 locations, and technicians deployed throughout the county are working to solve this issue at the remaining locations. All right, so when you go up to the ballot, right, you plug your name in, they print the ballot out. That apparently was where the problem was. It's not in the tabulators, but it was in the printing of the ballots. Low on toner, says P-Dog. Yeah, it's a toner problem. Don't you hate that, man? Man, I can't tell you. That used to happen to me a lot. You're late for a court. I need to print my brief out, or law school. I need to print my law school, memo out. Printer, no toner. Ugh! Gah! Yeah, pretty funny. Now, I don't know if the ballots were already printed or if it was just sort of the markers on the ballot that they print on the ballot so that they know whose ballot it is, right? Aren't there markers on the ballot? I mean, isn't that why they have to print them out? I don't know. So very interesting, very curious stuff going on there. Now, we'll see. There's a lot of questions about this, of course, that will continue to pop up. And the night is very, very young. But this gentleman over from ABC News, his name is Garrett Archer, and he's on Twitter. And he calls himself the data guru. And he posted this link earlier today. So if you're kind of curious about what the turnout looks like in Arizona and whether Arizona is a canary in the coal mine for other places around the country, here's what he said. As of 1:15, about 1:29 in Arizona this afternoon, here's the update. A party breakdown of checked-in voters. Look at this number. Look at this. Republican 56% to Democrats 15%. Holy moly. That's over 3 times, my friends. Since the last update, 53% Republican, Democrats 16, unaffiliated 31. Which way do you think the unaffiliated voters are going? And this guy's over at ABC 15. He sort of, works over there. Democratic individual, I'd say, generally speaking. I do follow him. And it's like over 3-to-1 turnout in Arizona. Absolutely crazy, right? Now, another good point on local says that most Democrats are doing mail-ins, right? So this big difference might be on Democrats. They just haven't counted. The reason they're not checking in is because it's all in the mail. It's all in the wheelbarrows that they're going to drop off, probably bright and early tomorrow morning, that are being counted, legally tabulated, So we'll, of course, see if that trend continues, but very interesting data. When I was going around, I also saw this. This was a breakdown on who votes for whom. And you can see employees in big tech companies donate to Democrats. This was the donation for the last, based on FEC data that came out from October 26. This is how all the big tech companies voted. Netflix, 99.6% for Democrats. Twitter, 98.7%. They're like monolithic. I mean, for all the people who talk about diversity and all this stuff, look at these numbers. Airbnb, 97% donations go to Democrats. Apple, 97%. The one that's the least is Oracle, Intel, and HP. Uber is 81%. All Democrats. Crazy. Lots of money going over there. And so you can imagine that a lot of the reaction on some of these platforms is not going to be good after the Democrats lose, presumably, pretty badly tonight. But we will see. Kari Lake cast her vote in Arizona as she's poised to become Arizona's next governor. You can see her walking into the polling location. She's asked about how she feels. She says, "We're feeling good, baby. We're going to win. We're going to win big."
Hey, how are you feeling?
How's it going, everyone? Oh my goodness.
How are you feeling?
Great. We're going to win this.
Kari, you think about the voting issues happening in Maricopa County?
Good.
She got asked about voting issues.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Great job, guys.
Lot of activity there. Now, this is right where we do our morning walk and talks. I forgot to mention that. So if you recall, if you've been on our morning walk and talks, you may have seen us walk by. This is the ASU Downtown Park Center, and there's a big fishnet in the area. And so they were right by where we sort of walked around this building a couple times. And so she was right in the area, downtown, right in the thick of it, voting at a downtown location. And she was in and out. After she voted, the media had a bunch of questions for her. Kari Lake is being considered as a potential nominee to join Donald Trump on a 2024 ticket as a vice presidential candidate. Will Kari Lake do that if called upon to serve? The media asks her, and she says, "I'm not going anywhere. Arizona's my home. I'm going to be here for a good long while, and you are not going to like it one bit."
Who are you?
Chris Van Cleef from CBS News. I want to just follow up on his question, if I may. If Donald Trump announces, as expected, to be president, and you win the governorship of Arizona, you're likely to be talked about as a VP candidate. Do you plan to serve your entire term in Arizona, or are you open to being the VP?
Are you new covering this race? Because we've talked about this before. We've talked about this. I've answered these questions. I am going to not only be the governor of Arizona for 4 years, I'm going to do 2 terms. I'm going to be your worst freaking nightmare for 8 years. And we will reform the media as well. We're going to make you guys into journalists again. So get ready. It's going to be a fun 8 years. I can't wait.
Your worst freaking nightmare, punks.
Who are you?
Chris Van in Arizona, or are you open to being the VP?
Are you new covering this race? Because we've talked about this before. We've talked about this. I've answered these questions. I am going to not only be the governor of Arizona for 4 years, I'm going to do 2 terms. I'm going to be your worst freaking nightmare for 8 years. And we will reform the media as well. We're going to make you guys into journalists again. So get ready. It's going to be a fun 8 years. I can't wait.
Yeah, excuse me, young man. Is this the first time that you've been here on our campaign trail? Okay, well, let me go ahead and give you the nice, peaceful, and patriotic Kari Lake backhand. What a stupid question. Of course I'm going to be here in Arizona for 8 years. And you, dumb journalists, are all going to get a reckoning come down your way because she says, you know, she's going to treat them appropriately and she's going to make them do their jobs. We all are very thrilled. Can't wait to see what happens with Kari Lake. And hopefully the trend continues and the red waves bring her to a crest of victory. We're looking forward to it. Now, we've got a second segment that we're going to get into because while these elections are underway, the Department of Justice is evidently monitoring all sorts of polling locations. Merrick Garland and the DOJ think that the elections need to be monitored because the DOJ has a strong track record of delivering credibility and legitimacy. They published a press release announcing that they were doing this to all of America on Monday, one day before the election started. The DOJ writes, the Justice Department, the Biden administration, is set to monitor polls, meaning the voting locations, right? Not like polls from Nate Silver 538 or Real Clear Politics. Polls like where people go to vote in 24 states for compliance with federal voting rights laws. So they're going to be charging people, I guess, for not complying. Justice Department today announced it's going to monitor 64 jurisdictions in 24 states, almost half the country, for November 8th, saying that they've got laws and they've regularly monitored elections in the field all over the place. Civil Rights Division will also take complaints from the public nationwide regarding possible civil rights violations and federal law violations. The Civil Rights Division enforces the federal voting rights laws and protects all citizens. Here's where they are appearing. We've got Alaska, Arizona, specifically Maricopa County, Arkansas, California, which is a blue state. Okay, so they're going, got red, blue. Florida, red. Georgia, I guess that's going to be decided tonight. Massachusetts, blue. Maryland, blue. Michigan, questionable. Minnesota, questionable. Missouri, North Carolina, those are going to be reds, right? New Jersey, New Mexico's blue. Nevada's questionable. New York's a blue. Ohio's a red. Pennsylvania's questionable. Texas is red. Utah, Virginia, Wisconsin, and South Carolina, along with Rhode Island. 24 different states. All over. And some of these are interesting. Alaska, for example. And New Mexico. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so that's what the DOJ is doing. They say that monitors are going to include personnel from the Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's offices. Okay, so a bunch of DOJ lawyers are coming into your states. In addition, the division also deploys monitors from the Office of Personnel Management, where authorized by federal court order. They're going to maintain contact with local and state election officials. They enforce the provisions of the law. On Election Day, the personnel will be available to receive complaints all day long. You can call them at that number if you want to. Complaints related to disruption at polling place should always be reported to local officials first. Complaints related to violence, threats of violence, should also be reported to local police. Great. They recently announced its overall plans for general election. If you have any more questions about that, that is all being listed here. Now, you'll notice that on this list, we had a couple counties in Florida that were on here. DOJ wants to investigate Broward County, Miami-Dade County, and Palm Beach County. 3 pretty important counties over there in Florida. But what's interesting is Florida says, we're not that interested in having you come here. Florida tells the DOJ to pound sand, says, you're not coming here to monitor our elections. Mind your own business. On November 7th, they sent this over to the DOJ.gov, in particular, a guy named Mr. Jon, in quotes, Burt. See that? Oh, it's John Burt. Hey, let's write a letter to John. Bert Russ. Okay. All right. So you see, that's why they put that in quotes there. Deputy Chief and Elections Coordinator, Voting Section, Civil Rights Division. I've got no problems with Bert. I sort of have gotten that a lot in my life, like Bert, Robert, All right. So U.S. Department of Justice regarding election monitoring program in Florida. The DOJ wants to send in a bunch of U.S. attorneys into Florida to say, we're kind of in charge here. We want to see how your election is being handled. And Florida says, no thanks. Dear Mr. Russ, a.k.a. Bert, earlier today, the Florida Department of State received copies of your letters to Miami-Dade and Broward counties, in which you seem to indicate the Department of Justice will send monitors inside polling places in these counties. We also understand that you sent a similar letter to Palm Beach County. This is weird. I got 3 letters from you guys. But the Justice Department monitors, they write, from the DOJ are not permitted inside a polling place under Florida law. You guys are lawyers, right? Like, don't you know anything? They say section 12.01031.3 subsection A of the Florida statutes lists the people who, quote, may enter any polling room or any polling place. That's Florida law. Department of Justice personnel are not included on the list. So thanks for telling us you're coming, but under state law, you're not. And this makes me very happy. States exercising the separation of powers and exercising their autonomy over the process, which is lawfully theirs, not the federal government's. Department of Justice personnel are not included on the list. Get out. Even if they could qualify as, quote, law enforcement under section 102.0313 sub A6 of the Florida statutes, absent some evidence concerning the need for federal intrusion or some federal statute that preempts Florida law, the presence of federal law enforcement inside polling places would be counterproductive and could potentially undermine confidence in the election. Beautiful. I've got tears in my eyes. Outstanding. Says that, the law is pretty plain on its face. Florida says that people who are in this list can go into polling places. DOJ lawyers from the Civil Rights Division, you're not on the list, okay? Try again. But if you think that there is a little way for you to insert yourselves under this law enforcement exception, because on the list it does say law enforcement, and you know the DOJ, they're going to, well, we're here as law enforcement capabilities and enforcing the law. Doesn't count, okay? Why? Because there needs to be some justification for why you have authority to be classified as a law enforcement person. No basis for federal intrusion, no federal statute that they've identified that preempts Florida law, that makes them supreme over Florida law. They say without any of those options, you haven't demonstrated a need, and being here would be counterproductive, and so you're not coming. Indeed, they continue, your letters do not detail the need for federal monitors in these counties. None of the counties are currently subject to any election-related federal consent decrees, meaning we've never entered into sort of this contractual agreement with you guys to allow this stuff to happen. None of the counties have been accused of violating the rights of language or racial minorities or the elderly or the disabled. So in other words, you can't just come poke around because you feel like it, like because you're bored. You have to identify something. Otherwise, what you're doing is threatening us. This would be like just pulling people over for no reason just to check on them. You just pull, you're just driving home from work. A cop pulls you over and just says, well, just checking on you. How are you? Are you drinking anything? No. Any illegal drugs? No. Doing anything problematic? No. Well, we're just checking. That is a seizure of your liberty, right? That is a seizure of your right. That cop has to have some basis for doing that. They can't just do it willy-nilly. That's what they're trying to do here. Well, we're just going to go monitor these things. Florida says, what the hell are you talking about? No, you're not. There has been no evidence that there is any justification to pull us over or to come in here and investigate us. There's no even hinting of civil rights violations against racial minorities, language problems, elderly or the disabled, which would all be discriminatory under, the Civil Rights Act or whatever you wanted to go with this. Your letters, writes Florida, simply provide a non-exhaustive list of federal election statutes as the basis for this action without pointing to any specific statutory authorization. So they just, they just did like a shotgun approach. Oh, we're the DOJ. We've got all sorts of rights. We just add this one, add this one, add this one. And somebody's just, copy and paste all the statutes from your notes and just shove them in this letter, send them over to the states. They'll all back down because they're a bunch of weenies. And evidently, all of them have. I mean, I don't, has any other state sent a letter like this challenging the feds, say, get the hell out of our states? I don't think so. When asked for specific authorization during our phone call this evening, you did not provide any. So they actually got on the phone about this before this hero of America, Brad McVeigh, general counsel for the Florida Department of State. He says, I got on the phone with you and I said, what specific authorization do you have? What can you point to in the federal law? Not just open, give me a phone book of federal election statutes. What gives you the basis to come in without any cause to monitor our elections? You did not provide any. And so, accordingly, the Florida Department of State invokes its authority under Section 10152 sub 2 of the Florida statutes to send its own monitors. We don't want your loser monitors. We've got our own who are not losers. And we're going to send them to the 3 targeted jurisdictions. These monitors, ours, will ensure there is no interference with the voting process. Oh, yes! You have my cell phone number. Please let me know how best to coordinate with your team as Florida works towards another smooth election day. Yes! Shout out to Brad McVeigh, General Counsel of Florida Department of State. I mean, that's outstanding. And he copies everybody and her counsel, everybody over there at the DOJ. Honorable Wendy Link, Joe Scott, Christina White. Must be, I'm not sure who those people are, actually. They're not up here. But that goes from the Florida Department of State over to the FBI. I'm sorry, I'm used to saying that. This case, the DOJ. The DOJ. And you're not coming into our state. Don't even think about it. I can't tell you how excited this stuff makes me. Okay, we've talked about this many times here, but when the states start pushing back on the federal government, it's what is necessary. If the federal government doesn't have the capability, the competence, they don't have the legal basis to do what they do, the states have to start acting and fighting back against it. And I don't know where the hell the other 23 states are. The only single state that I've seen from anybody who sent a letter back to the Fed saying, get out of here. Everybody else is waiting around for, I guess, the DOJ to go in there, monitor away, and tell them they did a very nice job. That's what's going on out of Florida. Now, Ron DeSantis, of course, that's his administration, and he apparently authorized that. So that's going over to the DOJ. By the time the DOJ responds, right, the election is largely going to be over, and we'll see if their monitoring was successful in any way, shape, or form. Why does the DOJ want to monitor all of the elections? It could be because they think there could be some problems with it. You saw this over from Spectator World. They say that the FBI is warning local parties that there may be some foreign interference. The author of this piece is Amber Athley. Says that shortly before the midterms, the FBI warned multiple U.S. state political parties of possible problems. 2 state Republican Party officials told The Spectator that their headquarters recently received communications from the FBI. FBI is now involved, right? FBI explained to them that they had intelligence indicating that unnamed foreign state actors may be trying to get involved. And so be cautious. The FBI warnings were otherwise vague. They did not tell party officials what specifically to look out for or what the intentions might be. Multiple sources familiar told The Spectator that they believe the warnings had gone out to many, if not all, state parties. And we haven't seen, the actual official warnings. They also said they had not personally seen any evidence that anything had been compromised. There are other reports. The New York Times reported over the weekend that there are trolls and bot farms that are being activated by the Russians as we go into the midterms. A lot of people talking about different users, right, all over the place. So you see sort of what's going on. The Russians are involved. Foreign state actors are involved. We'll see which of those narratives prove useful, but the election is well underway. The DOJ is monitoring them. We'll see how that works out for them at the end of the night. All right. And so we've got another segment, my friends. We've got Donald Trump. We've got some serious updates from Trump world. Donald Trump hit the polls to vote in the midterms, and he got asked a very important questions about a very particular race. Donald Trump, did you vote for a potential 2024 primary opponent? Trump is asked on the way to the polls about Ron DeSantis. Hey, Trump, did you vote for the governor, Ron, or did you give your vote over to Charlie Crist?
Mr. President, did you vote for Governor DeSantis?
Yes, I did. Did you vote for Ron DeSantis? And Trump says, yes, I did. Right on. That's the right vote. Obviously, he's not going to vote for Charlie Crist. He voted for Ron DeSantis, which is a very good vote, and Florida will be well served with that. And we've got more Trump announcements to get into, including an announcement about an announcement, which Trump is going to make coming up next week on November 15th. We're going to listen to that announcement that he made last night. But first, we've got to talk about food, because as recently as July, we learned that there's a food shortage that could be coming even in America. Drought, inflation, even new policies are pushing America's food supply to its breaking point. That's why survival food is now more important than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits that exist. This is not ordinary food, my friends. We're talking about good for 25 years super survival food. This stuff is hand-packed in a family-owned facility in the United States. It gives jobs to over 200 Americans. These kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, they stack easily, and they even have delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners. You can make these meals less than 20 minutes. All you have to do is add boiling water, simmer, and serve. Delicious. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use code ROBERT to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including a 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after you place your order, plus free shipping on anything over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert, get 10% off your order. 4patriots.com, that's code Robert. Start building your stockpile today, my friends. And thank you to 4 Patriots. All right, now, Donald Trump teased America with a big announcement. He was giving a speech. It was on the eve of the elections, and he was teasing to the world that he might announce his run for presidency. But he didn't. Instead, Donald Trump had an announcement about an announcement, and he got all of us.
Specifically including the election of all the people that I'm going to name. I'm going to be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida.
That's the date.
We want nothing to detract from the importance of tomorrow. You understand that, JD?
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, we were waiting around to see if he was going to announce. A lot of people were reporting that he was. Feels like that he was sort of, creating a little air out there to get people to get excited about voting and make sure they tuned in for the entire rally. And if you remember, there was over 250,000 people live on Rumble listening to that rally last night. And we'll see if that announcement or if that rally itself was consequential, because he was in Ohio and JD Vance needs a big turnout there and a big victory to make sure that that comes home. So Donald Trump was out there lending support to the midterm election. And when he was voting, he also was asked about this. They said, hey, Mr. Trump, are you the king of the Republican Party?
Hopefully the right thing will happen. You know what the right thing
Trump,
is.
are you still the kingmaker of this Republican Party? Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I do hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates. I think they're great candidates.
Love you
It's
for
been a,
Israel, Mr. Trump.
I really think it's been a brilliant campaign.
Brilliant campaign. He hopes that the MAGA candidates do well. He's out there with Melania, and they're voting in Florida, standing proud in front of the press. Joe Biden is not. The president is gone. Nobody has seen him today because he has not made any public appearances. Fox News reporting that Biden avoids public election day appearances, and he's taping radio interviews before calling a lid before noon. Before noon. 12 o'clock. A lid means he's done for the day. You see that Fox News has some more details for us. They say President Biden steered clear of public appearances on Election Day. He taped a single radio interview before he called it a day. He actively campaigned for a bunch of Democrats, but doesn't seem like it's working all that well. The president used the radio spot to tell Americans what the Biden-Harris administration has delivered, but they called a lid at 11:20 a.m. before the noon pool call time with reporters. They're just taking the rest of the day off. Holy moly. So they must know things are not looking so hot out there. Now you can see on the bottom, they've got Fox News is running the Chiron. We've got polls closing in 9 minutes in various places around the country on the East Coast and Pennsylvania and elsewhere, presumably. But here Biden is saying, it's election day. Make your voice heard today. Vote. He avoided all public events. He was active on his Twitter account. Yeah, I'm sure he was. I'm really sure he was. He called for all hands on deck. Get out there and make a difference for America. He said you can affect the outcome of this election down away from his bunker. And so Barrack joined in on the fun. In order to help Democrats eke across a finish line, maybe Barack Obama decided to join in with Joe Biden in this weird, way too close to your faces video.
A quick reminder, vote. Go to iwillvote.com to find out where and how.
We really like each other. We should make a video together and get really close to each other. Now, what's so funny about this is that I'm pretty sure Biden is reading this. I'm always watching his eyes to see what he's reading from, because he's typically reading. He can't even say, like a 10-second. This is a 7-second clip. And he's reading off to the left. Okay, so like if you're watching my eyes, right, up to the left. And he starts the video, reads the thing, and then looks back at the camera. Okay, so watch his eyes when I play this again.
A quick reminder, vote. Go to iwillvote.com to find out where and how.
His eyes are here on the script. They go to the camera. When they say vote, it's on the camera now. And then it goes back over to the script. And then it's back to the camera so that he can read the little 7-second, like 8-word sentence. It's just amazing. All right. So that's our president. That's Barack Obama. The two guys hand in hand, little lovebirds. All right. So we'll see if it works. I'm not so sure that it will. Remember this guy, Adam Kinzinger, very upset with the Democrats are not going to be maintaining control of the House. He's not going to be having a job very soon. And he knows that Donald Trump is seemingly gaining momentum. As Trump seemingly takes the lead in the polls and gets closer to announcing, Adam Kinzinger blames Kevin McCarthy, saying that McCarthy is responsible for the resurrection of Trump that we're all going to endure.
What's happened is people like Kevin McCarthy bears 90% of the weight,
Wow,
I think, for Donald Trump's return. He is a failed leader who has absolutely nothing more than his own power in his mind, and he resurrected Donald Trump. I got to tell you, if he's ever around a mirror, I can't imagine that's easy to look at him unless he's just that cold and calculated.
Just that cold and calculated, Kevin McCarthy, coming from Adam Kinzinger, who was until next month or two, not going to be in Congress anymore. This guy was on the January 6th Select Committee, a fake, illegally constituted, by their own rules, Select Committee that their entire purpose was to create a narrative and to essentially prosecute people without any due process, without any adversarial system, without any even presentation of opposing evidence. He's saying that Kevin McCarthy, who I am no fan of, by the way. I mean, what the heck is he, Kevin McCarthy. Okay, great. He's going to solve America's problems. But he's responsible for resurrecting Donald Trump? I'm not so sure about that. Did Kevin McCarthy seem like a giant ally for Donald Trump? I don't think so. And Kevin McCarthy is a Republican, just like Adam Kinzinger pretends to be.
But you were an ally. Kevin McCarthy was an ally of yours when you came into office. You were one of his proteges, if you will.
Now you're turning?
Did you not see that back then, that he was just nakedly after power, or do you think something changed?
Well, I guess in hindsight you can see that. I knew he was a very good politician, and he is. He goes with the wind. He goes where it's going to take him to higher power. He knows everybody's name. He knows something about you. And I knew that there was a lot of politician-y to that. But at the time, at least, we didn't have Donald Trump yet. When he came, and you all of a sudden start seeing people, it's not just about differences of opinion. We need differences of opinions in this country, but it's about swallowing authoritarian moves, destroying the Constitution, and changing how we respect government.
You are on a fake, illegally constituted committee. It was supposed to have 13 members. It doesn't. It was supposed to have 5 Republicans. It doesn't. You, my friend, have made a mockery and a joke of the entire process, including J6, crying day after day about the horrors that took place there. It was not what you say it is, but you've turned it into something for the last 2 years. It's pretty embarrassing.
And I saw him start working on behalf of Trump for that and not lead. I mean, Liz Cheney and I can speak out against Donald Trump, and we're going to keep doing this. Kevin McCarthy's the one that people would listen to. He's a leader, and he's too cowardice to do it. Whoa! And people need to recognize that.
I mean, there's the power aspect of it, but then there are people who legitimately believe that you leaving the party, as it were, to hold Trump accountable is a moral abomination. And some of those people are in your own family.
Yeah,
you shared, I believe, a letter right after you called for Trump to be removed from office under the 25th Amendment. 11 members of your family sent you this letter.
Wow.
I'll just quote some choice lines. Adam, oh my, what a disappointment you are to us and to God. We were once so proud of your accomplishments. Instead, you go against your Christian principles and join the devil's army, the Democrats and the fake news media. Adam, they are not going to like this appearance this evening on MSNBC. But, I mean, you know what happened with Kevin McCarthy, right? I mean,
she blasted him with his own family on MSNBC. Oh! I honestly did not even know that was coming. That is so great. I have not watched this clip.
That's a fairly ABC. I can be maybe the next Speaker of the House. I'm Kevin McCarthy. I'm going to stay in power. But what about members of your own family? And I ask that not just to get you to, be critical of members of your own family, but because I think they're representative of a lot of Republicans in the country who don't hold elected office and are in thrall to Donald Trump and are voting against Liz Cheney, who otherwise is everything you could want from a conservative Republican.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to talk about. So first off, I've come to believe over the last year that people, more than even fearing death, we're such a tribalistic people that they fear being kicked out of their tribe. And so you accept anything because now republicanism or conservatism or Trumpism becomes your identity. And so you're going to stay. Now, my family, look, they're my dad's cousins.
You love your family. They're entitled to their opinion. Hopefully he's diplomatic about it. But he kind of is he hopefully he doesn't go down the MAGA extremist route. Let's see.
I'm going to say this as a Christian myself. The pastors, many pastors in this country are failing their congregation, not even just by, pushing kind of Trumpism from the pulpit, but even refusing to talk about how bad it is, how corrosive it is. And you have people today that literally, I think in their heart, they may not say it, but they equate Donald Trump with the person of Jesus Christ. And to them, if you even come out against this amazing man, Donald Trump, which I mean, obviously quite flawed, you are coming out against Jesus, against their Christian values. And when you go after their religion, that violates the depth of who they are. And I've been kicked out of my tribe, and that's okay.
Wow.
What's happening?
So he is calling his family a bunch of MAGA Christian extremists, I think, who think Donald Trump is the second coming. and he is disavowing them. And MSNBC called him out with his own family and their own letter to him. Oh my gosh. Wow. All right. So, honestly, this is a sad thing. Like, this is a really sad thing that's going on. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, like, to get serious on this for a minute. This is happening all over this country. There are people out there who have disinvited their loved ones from all sorts of events, graduations, weddings, everything. Holiday parties. We've got Thanksgivings coming up. There are people who will keep people out because they supported Trump or because they, want you to be jabbed or something, right? There's all sorts of this stuff taking place. And oftentimes we don't really see this on display. This is on display for all of us to see. Adam Kinzinger, his own family threw him out because of policies. And, it's honestly, it's a sad thing. It's really a bummer that our politics have gotten this bad, to see it's ripping families apart. Now, he is going to turn around and blame his family for being Trump, MAGA, insurrection, Christian extremists. He's going to blame the entire, Christian coalition of people who go to congregation. He blamed pastors. He blamed people who are religious, who listen to those pastors, people almost like a clinging to their guns sort of argument. And he doesn't want for 1 minute look at himself and see what he has become and what he's changed into and how he has strayed from his ways. It's everybody else's fault. His family has disowned him now, and he's just on MSNBC, just going along with this. I guess shilling for those tweets and that time next to Liz Cheney. What a shame. Families being stripped apart. Although I'm not going to cry too much over Adam Kinzinger. He'll do enough crying for the rest of us. But wow, Adam Kinzinger gets blasted by his own family member live on MSNBC. I did not even expect that. I was only expecting to play like the first 60 seconds of that. And wow, they they really let him have it. So Trump voting for DeSantis. We have an announcement about an announcement. He's going to be announcing on November 15th. Of course, there'll be a lot of coverage on that. Barack Obama hanging out with Joe Biden, who is in hiding. Adam Kinzinger blaming McCarthy for resurrecting Trump. We'll continue to follow all of it and more. All right, we've got one final segment before we wrap it up on the day. And we'll take some of those super chats. We'll take some of your questions, anything else that is coming in before we hang it up on the night. But let's get started because we have a little bit of heavy lifting to do. We have a lawsuit that we are going to check in on here because it just got filed. Fetterman sues in Pennsylvania. He wants undated ballots to be counted. On this channel previously, we've talked about various lawsuits, including one from Pennsylvania that said that those undated ballots won't be counted. They'll be set aside and could prospectively be counted, pending further litigation. But now, Marc Elias at the Democracy Docket has filed a lawsuit to address this. You see, this was posted on their website at Democracy Docket. Marc Elias is a very prestigious lawyer, somebody who is very effective, who is very much aligned with the Democratic Party aggressively, supports all of their litigation, or not all of it, but large portions of it in various courts in various states around the country. He's excellent at it. Republicans got absolutely demolished by him, embarrassed and demolished by them the last election. And he posted this on November 7th. Marc Elias and Democracy Docket, they say Fetterman and voters are now suing over mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. On Monday, Fetterman and others filed a lawsuit challenging Pennsylvania's plan, which is now in place, to not count undated mail-in ballots, ballots that are missing a handwritten date next to the voter declaration signature, and wrongly dated ballots, ballots that are timely cast but have an incorrect date, like if the voter puts their birthday on there or some other number on there. But it's in the mail, maybe it's postmarked before, but they just filled it out erroneously. In Pennsylvania, there is a slight distinction between absentee mail-in ballots and mail-in ballots and other things, and so they give us the press release on what happens. They say that this lawsuit comes after a series of Republican challenges to counting undated or wrongly dated mail-in ballots filed this year. So the Republicans file a bunch of requests saying, hey, if these aren't properly filled out, they've got to go. In October, they say, the GOP saw another opening to challenge these ballots at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court vacated that decision, and saying, although the Supreme Court's action did not have any immediate effect, they still say that we need to file a lawsuit. So they did that. Now let's go through this so that we can see exactly how this is unfolding. Jon Fetterman and Marc Elias, the Democrats, all sue in Pennsylvania various board of elections from all across the state. You can see them all here: Franklin County, Fulton County, Huntingdon, Chester, and so on. All of the different counties, all of their different election boards. We've got Fetterman filing suit. 17-page lawsuit in the Western District of Pennsylvania filed on November 7th. Big list of defendants, many people being sued here. Here is what the lawsuit says. The nature of the case, it says, the constitutional right to vote is fundamental, and it's preservative of all rights. And so to preserve that, the Civil Rights Act was passed. In essence, they say that there's this concept called the materiality provision, which prohibits the use of needless technical requirements to deny citizens a fundamental right. So do you see where they're going with this? The date is going to be a technicality that shouldn't interfere with the sanctity of a vote. You can already see it coming. A week ago, writes the Democrats, Jon Fetterman and his campaign. Let me show you who is actually drafting this. All the way at the bottom, we've got Adam C. Bonin is the lawyer who signed off on it, along with several people from the Elias Law Group. Elias Law Group. All right. So we know who's behind this suit. It tells us that they are needing to secure the right to vote. A week ago, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, for the first time, ordered election officials to not count what they say are qualified mail-in and absentee votes. This was due to an immaterial, they say, omission of a written date. Or if you put an incorrect date on the outside of the ballot envelope, they said don't have to count it. That decision was based on the interpretation of the Pennsylvania code that says that you have to fill out, date, and sign the declaration. Okay, in other words, that's the law. The Pennsylvania election law says date and sign it. It's right there, black and white. Counties have followed suit. In the following days following the Pennsylvania Supreme Court order, County Board of Elections have already identified thousands of mail-in ballots that will not be counted because a missing or incorrect date on the ballot envelope exists, rejecting qualified voters who accidentally failed to write a date on their ballot. And more will be rejected when voters enter an incorrect date, like their birth date, instead of the date that they thought they should put on their ballot. So why would the Democrats be very upset about this big bucket? Well, it's because they very likely know that the mail-in ballots are probably going to break for Jon Fetterman at what kind of a margin? Probably 3-1, 2-1, 4-1. So if it's close, they want those thousands of ballots to come in. Election officials have been ordered to reject those ballots, even when there is no question that they were timely received and properly signed by a qualified voter. The date instruction, they argue, has no relevance to determining whether an individual is qualified to vote under Pennsylvania law. Residents are eligible to vote so long as they've got 18 years of age, they've been a citizen, they've been a member of the Commonwealth for a long period of time. And they say to any extent that the date is relevant, it is the date of the election, not the date of the signature that matters. Okay, this is Marc Elias. And they say that a ballot's timeliness depends on the day that the voter completed it and signed it, not the day that it's received. Okay, this is flashbacks to 2020. We have all the same arguments being made. Now, what would be very interesting to do would be to go back and see how Marc's arguments differ depending on the jurisdiction and the situation. The date on a mail ballot thus has no bearing on a voter's qualifications. So in other words, even though it says so in the law, it really doesn't matter. It's unnecessary. It's an impediment. It violates the Civil Rights Act to require somebody to date it. And so all of those ballots should count. You see how technical this stuff is? It is really, really technical. And this guy is filing these all over the place. He's been doing it for years. Elias brings this action. He says the court has jurisdiction. The parties involved, we've got Bet Eakin, registered Democratic voter, She's a veteran currently undergoing care for a condition that's made her blind. Oh, great. And as a result, she's unable to cast an in-person ballot. So they went and they got a blind veteran named Betty. Very sympathetic person. She's going to be blind, and so she can't possibly go and vote in person. And they also have another plaintiff who's a registered Democratic voter whose ballot was undated and therefore will not be counted. Jon Fetterman is the lieutenant governor running for Senate. Plaintiffs are the Democratic Party and the Senatorial Committee. They say in 2022, the Democratic Committee will provide millions of dollars in contributions to fund this race. That's why they're saying they've got standing. For 2022 elections in the United States Senate, the Democrats have worked to support Jon Fetterman, and they've made substantial contributions to his candidacy. They say it's the mission to elect Democrats. That's all the DCC does. They wake up every day. They've poured millions of dollars into this race. And the defendants are the Board of Supervisors, the Board of Elections, all over the state of Pennsylvania. They're charged with accepting the ballots and processing the votes. They give us a statement of facts and law. They tell us that in Pennsylvania, a resident is qualified if he hits these conditions, resided there for 90 days, lived in the district where they want to vote, not had a felony, 18 years old, citizen of the United States, so on and so forth. But for the first time, they say these people are not being allowed to vote by mail because they are not putting the dates on them. The law says you've got to mark it on or before the close of business at 8 o'clock the day of the primary or the election. Use a black lead pencil or black or blue ink, fold and enclose it properly, place the completed ballot in a blank secrecy envelope, place the secrecy envelope in an outer envelope on which it is printed the declaration of the elector, and fill out, date, and sign the declaration printed on the envelope. Instructions are pretty clear. Marc Elias says the date instruction serves no meaningful purpose, or his law firm says it serves no meaningful purpose. And so we don't need it anymore. Just get rid of it. Says that we've got a lot of records. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court said a lot of this stuff doesn't matter back in 2020, they said. Writing here. 3 of the court's 7 justices concluded the date instruction was a directory, not mandatory instructions. You see how this works in the law? This is what the law actually says. Fill out, date, and sign the declaration printed on such envelope. That's the law. It's in quotes. Then you get judges who say, well, it was a directory rather than a mandatory instruction. It's sort of like, well, they kind of just suggested it. And thus, inadvertent failure does not mean those ballots are excluded. 3 judges reasoned that it wasn't a weighty interest. It's just a date. It doesn't really matter. 3 other justices concluded the date instruction was mandatory and that it is important. So concurring and writing for himself, we've got Justice Wecht, who provided the tie-breaking vote. It's like a 50-50 split. Can't even figure out if you have to write a date on the ballot. Judge in the middle says, I think it is mandatory, meaning that Pennsylvania law required rejecting ballots, but said that it should be applied to the next election. Okay, so not in 2020, said it should go to the next one. Nearly 2 years after the decisions, the Supreme Court declined to interpret these laws, and the president or the judges in Pennsylvania had some different issues. A lot of issues they're talking through here. The lawsuit from Jon Fetterman, first count 1, they say that Pennsylvania is violating the Civil Rights Act and that the ballots should be counted because they are prohibiting people from voting for unnecessary limitations, in this case, the date requirement. Count 2, violation of the First and the 14th Amendment, saying the state cannot utilize election practices that unduly burden the right to vote. And by putting a date on the outside of a ballot is a giant burden. So they don't want any of that to be in place. They're asking specifically for the court to declare that the date instruction that precludes election officials from counting ballots is rejected. Preliminarily and permanently enjoin the defendants from acting in concert, from rejecting those. Okay, so the stuff that is being set aside, don't set it aside anymore. Give Jon Fetterman costs and award him attorney's fees and grant any other remedies that they deem proper. Signed and submitted by Adam C. Bonin and others at the Elias Law Group. Going out in Pennsylvania, Jon Fetterman does not want those ballots to not be counted. He wants anything that is even without a date to be included in the counts. And of course, we'll see what the court does with that as it works its way up. Meanwhile, the Republicans are seemingly building up a bit of a litigation war chest themselves. We have the Daily Caller reporting that the Republican National Committee has beefed up its election integrity operations. They've hired and recruited hundreds of attorneys and new integrity-focused staff and volunteers leading up to the midterms. The press secretary for the RNC, her name is Nicole Morales, she told the Daily Caller News that the GOP has 17 in-state election integrity directors and 38 state-based election integrity councils. It's a lot of people across battleground states. She added that the RNC is involved in 78 cases of election integrity in 20 states during the 2022 cycle, and the Republicans are prepared for any litigation surrounding the results of the election. So pretty amazing stuff. You see another one from Doug Mastriano, who is running in Pennsylvania as well. And he was referencing that prior Pennsylvania case that said that the undated ballots have to be segregated and set aside, that all of those need to be sort of moved over and dealt with later. And so, of course, that's very good news. The Republicans got blown out pretty badly last time in their election preparation, and it seems like they are not going to get taken advantage of, at least so badly this time. We'll see how it unfolds. Reuters is reporting that there are many additional election lawsuits taking place, some coming from the ACLU and others. We've already talked about Jon Fetterman. He filed a lawsuit with Marc Elias, but there were others. In Georgia, the ACLU and Lawyers for Cobb County, they were also in court on Monday. They finalized an agreement to let the judge extend the ballot delivery deadline until November 14th for hundreds of voters who requested absentee ballots but did not receive them. So if it's a close election, right, we've got hundreds of potential outstanding votes, this thing could go all the way into next week in Georgia. The agreement was signed by Cobb County Superior Court Judge. ACLU lawsuit followed. 1,000 voters apparently impacted. Those voters are now going to have the option of using alternative write-in forms. Arizona, a judge on Monday blocked officials in Cochise County from conducting a hand count of all the ballots on Tuesday. Other close races in other parts of the country. So a lot of litigation is going to be heating up. Of course, we will continue to cover it. And I hope you join us as we do that. But that, my friends, is it for us on the segments today. You can see we covered a lot of ground, and the results are certainly coming in here all across America. And so we're going to jump into your questions and some of your comments before we turn it over to some other individuals who are doing some very nice election coverage out there. I think that Good Logic has a panel. I think that Legal Mindset has a panel as well later, which we'll see about attending to. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this. And I think I saw another super chat come in from our friend Eddie. And so let's grab that before we wrap it up here on the day. See what you guys have to say about the show and any other comments. Diane B says, 12 minutes to go in Massachusetts before the polls close over there. Mad says, Ohio, West Virginia closed, which is interesting news. So, okay, so about, those closed, 12 minutes. Bean is at Good Logic. K Bean's over at Good Logic. Nice. In Oregon, we've got some issues. Just Cause says Kentucky's closed. Yep, the results are going to be coming in, which is going to be fun. We're going to start to see what those look like. Eddie Oliver is sending in another super chat. Thank you, Eddie, for that one. Here's what that one sounds like. It says, you cannot grow as a person until you accept responsibilities for your actions. It's true. Full responsibility is very important. You failed your family, you failed yourself, but most of all, you failed America. Don't be a scrub and learn how to vote. I don't know if you're directing that at me, Eddie, but or this is your enthusiasm. I know what it is. It's your enthusiastic rally cry to get out there and vote. And we did. I did that, of course, obviously. You know, it's like Eddie's saying, hey, look, let's cut down to brass tacks here. All right. Either you get out and you vote, or you have another option. You can accept your complete and utter failure in every aspect of your life, including failing with your family, failing with yourself, and most of all, failing America. Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate that. Enthusiastic encouragement to get out there and vote. I do think it is time. Many places you may be out of time. In Arizona, there's still time. Certainly you can get out there and make your voice heard. But let's see what else we've got in the chats before we call it a night. Mad says, Georgia is red so far. Good to see you, Mads. Let's see what's going on over on Rumble. We've got member of the public's in the house. Anything's in the house. Dog Digger says, I have never not voted. Amazing. R.D. Hayward says, what if anything was gleaned and applied from Maricopa? Well, that's looking backwards. So I haven't seen anything. On that, like anything on this election, R.D. Hayward. 16,000 watching live over at Viva and Barnes. Amazing. So Viva and Barnes is also streaming. Vance is gaining with every vote dump. Rubio's up by 10, says Ray K. Florida's killing it. Palm Beach, Miami, it's going to flip. That's coming over on our locals chat. Bear Ashby's in the house. We had a nice, interesting comment from Sin. Says, Trump will announce a run for presidency, but the announcement about an announcement was for the DOJ's countdown to do something or don't. A deadline, as you say. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's that Trump wants to pre-butt a potential indictment. So if he doesn't announce that he's got an announcement and he just waits, then they could indict him before he announces. So now he's announced that I'm going to be announcing. And so that sort of insulates him for those next, 8-9 days. Because the last thing that you don't want is him to get hit with an indictment like on Monday. He announces on Tuesday. I think that's what you're saying. Very astute observation there. South Carolina closed. I see JC says, if I were to accept my failure, will you be joining any of the results watch stream, says Righty. Yeah, I'm not sure how late I'll go. I think we're going to swing by Good Logic here in a little bit. What channel will Rob be joining? We're going to go over to Good Logic after this is done. JC says, if I were to accept all of my failures, I'm sure I would accept my failure to vote as well. That's true. I guess you would, yeah. I mean, because you're like not voting for most of us is probably small on our list of failures, I would guess. Like if that's your big giant failure, you probably should be trying some more ambitious things generally. Anyone seen Poso's new profile pic? Looks like, no, I've not seen it. I've not seen it. Yeah. Scottish Gal says, so we went to a poll in Chandler. The printers were jamming. They apparently gave his ballot to... Oh, that's a problem. Crowder's got Kari Lake on. Ooh, yeah, there's going to be a lot of big shows out there and a lot of cool panels. So I wanted to do just a little bit of a show to hit some of the highlights, and then we'll jump over to a panel in a little bit. Crowder has Kari Lake, but it hasn't started yet. Wow, that's interesting. So Scottish Gal has an interesting issue that they ran into. Yep. Well, all right, everybody. Well, so I think what we'll do is we will leave it here on the day. I want to thank everybody for joining the show. I'm going to wrap it up right here. We're going to redirect this stuff over to Good Logic. And then Good Logic I will pop on there for a little bit. We'll watch some of the results come in and hang out for a little bit. Eddie Oliver says, I sent 3 super chats and you read them out of order. That's why the last one made no sense. Oh, I see what you're saying, Eddie. I got it, Eddie. So here's the back-to-backs from Eddie. Rob, I already told you earlier this election debacle, it's your fault. Stop trying to blame those poor county recorders. Texas rocks. Okay, so I missed that one from Eddie. Here it is. He says, what's up with them in Arizona and the voting machines? We don't have those problems in Texas. I'm holding you personally responsible. Stop being a scrub and fix it. So I must have blamed the county recorders. Don't blame them. It's your fault. You are from Arizona, is what Eddie's saying. You are Arizona, Rob. All right, I'll take it. I'll accept it. And he says, you failed your family, which is okay, I'll have to talk to my mom. I'll have to call her and apologize. Mom, I'm sorry that I wrecked the election. Can you ever forgive me? Hopefully she does. Hopefully she does. All right, my friends. Well, we are going to wrap it up right there. We're going to jump on over to Locals for a Locals after party and to hit some of the Locals comments and questions. And so if you would like to join us, head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com before we head on over to Good Logic for some of his afternoon stream stuff or his election coverage stream stuff. And so we're heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you want to come and check us out, that's the place to be. I want to once again thank all of our sponsors on the program. Don't forget to go check out robertlikesgold.com to get your gold and also buy some survival food. Obviously, we all need it. forpatriots.com, promo code Robert. I also am a criminal defense lawyer at the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so I know most of you are not in Arizona, but if you happen to hear of anybody in Arizona who does need help with criminal charges, that's all we do. Like literally, we have an awesome team. We work very hard for our clients. 480-787-0394, online at rrlawaz.com for free case evaluations. And finally, thank you to all the mods who are modding down the fort for us. Vientikiss, K-Bean, Just Cause, Lean, who I saw in the house, along with Playin' Hooky, Ronnie, Cole, Zulu, Geo, and Henry swing by from time to time. And that is it for us on the day, my friends. We're going to leave it right there. We'll be back tomorrow to debrief it all. We'll have our morning walk and talk for members and local supporters. Otherwise, my friends, have a tremendous evening. I look forward to seeing you right here tomorrow so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. Sleep very well. Vote if you haven't already done so on the East Coast. And I'll look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.